So coming up this weekend is going to be Bellator Champions Series Paris, and it will be taking place on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's going to be a pretty short Bellator card. There is only 10 fights on this card. Bellator does typically do like 14 to 15 person long fight cards, but this one's only 10 fights, so it should be pretty good. Pretty quality over quantity, in my opinion. Overall, a very, very solid card, especially when you do consider Cedric Doumbe, who is a superstar in France, is in the co-main event and not the main event. And Patchy mix versus Magomedov is a rematch between two of the better bantamweights in the world. There's some really good prospects on there as well, and I did want to also highlight on my YouTube channel right now, I do have my predictions out for the Road to UFC tournament, which will also be taking place this weekend. This is episode 1, but there are multiple episodes that will be live streamed, of course, on UFC Fight Pass. 4 events for Road to UFC in kind of contender series style, kind of tournament sort of style as well. I do explain it much better on the Road to UFC prediction videos, but I did want to say that I do already have those out on my channel right now if you want to check them out. And also, We Want Picks premium membership, it is $10 per month, but you can get a 3-day free trial if you do sign up using my code ARTEM, and with that you will get access to everything, which is Angelo and Jacob's bets, tools that help you make your own bets, as well as my article. And my article this week is it's gonna be a long one, because I'm gonna have to write about Bellator, Road to UFC, and then like 4 other regional promotions that are gonna be on as well as the UFC event too. So there is a lot of MMA to look forward to this week. And with all of that being said, I'll see you guys in the prediction video. I am going to go through the prelims rather quickly, as the New Zealand winter has head kicked my immune system and I have caught a cold again. But kicking off the card is going to be Asael Adjouj fighting Bruno Fontes. Fontes will be making his Bellator debut, and he hasn't really fought for a while. I'm kind of assuming he got a contract after he won the title in Jungle Fight in Brazil, but then just didn't really get the debut fight until now, something along those lines. But he is kind of an interesting fighter, because I would consider him to be very well-rounded. Mostly a grappler, I would say, but he does have pretty decent striking as well. He is listed at 5'7", which is much shorter than his opponent Adjouj, but he is quite well built. Like, he has got quite a bit of width to him at 145 pounds. One thing that I did notice about Bruno Fontes, though, is that he can get taken down, and that he can also get outstruck. I didn't think that he was the most technical striker in the world, even though he is pretty high volume and he is pretty aggressive. Does throw a lot of leg kicks, which could actually disrupt Asael Adjouj's game, because I feel like Asael Adjouj must have some sort of kickboxing background, because this guy uses his length and his kickboxing very, very well, but he's got an interesting style because he shoots for takedowns as well. And yeah, if you watch his fight, he throws a lot of kicks, a lot of body kicks, a lot of head kicks, and he's very, very fast. Kind of has that crouched down kickboxing sort of style, which may leave him open to leg kicks, but he does check them quite well. But Fontes will be throwing a lot of kicks to Asael Adjouj's legs. One thing that I am kind of interested in with Asael is just the fact that he is such a good striker, and he does shoot for takedowns pretty regularly. I mean, the way that he beat Georges Sasu was with his wrestling, which was kind of interesting, and he's kind of done the same sort of thing throughout his Bellator career. So I do like Adjouj as a prospect. I mean, he's a guy that's a really good striker and a decent wrestler as well. I do think this is probably going to be his toughest opponent yet, because Bruno Fontes does have experience against some very good competition, 4-0, 12-2, and 11-1. I am going to be predicting Asael Adjouj to win this fight by decision, but I did want to kind of let you guys know as well, if you want to find tape on Bruno Fontes, he does fight under a different name. It's not Bruno Fontes. I think it's Bruno Carreira is how I managed to find it. But once you find one fight, you will find them all. They are on YouTube. So I'm going to pick Adjouj. I'm going to pick Adjouj to win by decision. And looks like I am not in the majority on that one there. Now we have Aspen Ladd fighting against Ekaterina Shakalova, and Aspen Ladd is actually the underdog in this fight here. I think the odds are -120 for Shakalova, -110 for Aspen Ladd. I am actually going to predict Aspen Ladd to win this fight. I I don't feel that good about it. I'll be honest. I'm going to double check the weight class it's at because it is at women's 145 pounds, and that is where Aspen has moved to since being released from the UFC. But Ekaterina Shakalova is 5'2", and she's definitely 5'2". She's very, very short for the weight class. Every fight that I found of her, which wasn't all of them, I will admit, I couldn't find all of her fights, but of the ones that I did find out of her, she was the shorter fighter in all of them, and she's a wrestler for the most part. She does actually seem to have some sort of wrestling background because every time she shot for a takedown, she didn't really have any problems whatsoever getting her opponents down to the ground. I think that she might struggle a little bit doing that with Aspen because Aspen is a very good wrestler. She does have a solid wrestling background, but for some reason she fell in love with her hands, which is kind of odd because Aspen is not a very good striker. She doesn't really have very good range management whatsoever. Like, she'll be on the other side of the cage throwing strikes. It's kind of weird to watch. If you watch her fight against Elena Kolesnik, I feel like this is the most egregious example of her doing this. Kolesnik just outstruck her the whole fight, and Aspen with her wrestling background didn't shoot for takedowns. I think that she probably could have success maybe in the striking here because I wasn't very impressed by Ekaterina Shakalova's striking whatsoever. So if this fight does end up being on the feet, I think it probably could end up being a pretty hard watch. But I think that if there is a bit of wrestling, I like Aspen in the matchup. I think that she should be able to reverse positions that Shakalova puts her in if she does take her down. But also Aspen is going to be the much bigger fighter in the matchup as well. And I think that she should be able to use her wrestling to beat Shakalova as the underdog. But most of Tapology is predicting Lad to win the fight. And now Imamshafi Aliev is going to be fighting Mike Shipman, and Imamshafi Aliev is minus 900. And to be honest with you, to be fully honest with you, I don't actually think there's that much evidence out there that suggests that Aliev should be a minus 900 favorite. Because if I do watch his fight, you can find them. Eagle FC, he did fight a couple times for Eagle FC. They're on YouTube, no real issue finding them. I didn't think that he really looked that impressive doing it. For some reason, I couldn't find his fight against Sean Connor Fallon, but I did actually watch a video of someone recapping the card, and they were going on about how the fight shouldn't have been stopped, which is kind of interesting. But I did see a photo of Imamshafi Aliev slamming an elbow down on his opponent. I'm assuming that's how it happened, but that's how he fights. He does kind of fight how you would expect him to. He does pressure forward very, very well. Every time I've watched him fight on the feet, he's pushing his fighters backwards. He's pressuring his opponents backwards, and then he shoots for a takedown and has really no issues whatsoever getting those takedowns. And I'm not that convinced that Mike Shipman will be able to defend the takedowns of Imamshafi. I mean, maybe he could have some success on the feet, but Shipman's not going to be bigger than Shafi because Imamshafi is taller than him and really, really wide for 185 pounds, man. He's massive. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Imamshafi Aliev. He does exactly what you would expect him to. Shipman's been up and down recently. He had a pretty good win recently. Where was it? Against Pietro Panini, but yeah, I don't know. He got knocked out by Gregory Babine, who's 41 years old, who's also on this card. But yeah, I like Aliev. I'm going to pick Aliev to win by TKO due to ground and pound. He's minus 900. As I did say, there's genuinely not that much evidence to suggest that he should be minus 900 because he's never seen any adversity, but that probably is evidence in itself. I'll just move on. Mansour Barnaoui is going to be fighting Yusuke Yachi, and it's kind of hard to be confident in Mansour Barnaoui because you've got to consider how he has lost since signing to Bellator. If you guys don't know who Barnaoui is, I think he won $1 million in this Road FC. I apologize, Road FC tournament when he did defeat Asael Kwan in the final. Then he didn't fight for about 2.5 years, but Bellator signed him after that. And then he defeated Adam Piccolotti and looked really good, but since then he has lost a couple of fights. And why I say you've got to consider how he's lost those fights, because he's lost those fights by being out-grappled. And that's kind of odd, because that's what Mansour Barnaoui is actually really good at. That's his strength, is it his grappling. And that's what Yusuke Yachi is. Yusuke Yachi is a grappler. And I know you might just look at him and see a 26-13 record and assume he's not actually that good. He is pretty decent. I mean, if you go through his career and you really, really just kind of look at numbers on a page, the guys that he's beaten, the guys that he's lost to, are very high-level fighters. This guy has fought very high-level fighters throughout his entire career. But do I think he can go out there against Mansour Barnaoui and out-grapple Mansour Barnaoui. I am going to say no to that one. One thing that I will say about Barnaoui is he is very, very good at reversals. Like, if you put him in a bad position, he's going to somehow scramble out of it. He does have a very, very good grappling game. He is a very good defensive grappler, even though he has been out-grappled in his most recent fights, which is kind of interesting to see. But he should be able to get one back here and beat Yusuke Yachi in this matchup here. It is also in France, and he's French, so he's got a little bit of a hometown advantage. Minus 400. Pretty wide. I know you can just look at Yachi and assume he's not that good because of his record, but everyone he's for. Roberto de Souza was a Ryzen champion. Luis Gustavo's pretty good. Boyd Allen was 16-4, sorry. I mean, Zach Zane. But yeah, like, numbers on a page, you would just assume by now he should be minus 400, but I do look at the way he's been losing his fights, and I do lose a little bit of confidence in him, but I am still got a decent amount of confidence in predicting Barnaoui to win this matchup. Slim Trabelsi will be taking on Louie Sutherland, sorry, in the featured prelim of the night, and Slim Trabelsi is a heavyweight prospect that I consider to be very good. And I think it's a bad matchup for Louie Sutherland because Louie Sutherland's a pretty decent striker for the weight class. He's a big guy, 6'3", pretty well built. Like he's a big heavyweight, and he does have a lot of power, and he does have seemingly some sort of Muay Thai background because dude, he was smoking Alson Meeks with knees in that matchup, like absolutely smoking him. But he was getting taken down a lot, and Slim Trabelsi's a wrestler. And I kind of just looked at that and thought, Trabelsi's going to take this guy down. If you look at Trabelsi's whole career, he beat a 4-0 guy, and then he fought, I think Luis Henrique is like a former UFC fighter, but I could be wrong about that. But then he took on a 12-0 prospect, and he managed to reverse positions on the ground that he was put in, and dominate with top control and ground and pound. And then he beat Davion Franklin by injury, so kind of iffy, but Trabelsi's a very, very talented wrestler at this weight class, and Louie Sutherland, to me, doesn't really seem to have any really good takedown defense. So I think he's just going to really struggle with Trabelsi getting takedowns here. So I do like Trabelsi. I like him to win by finish with the grappling. Maybe a submission, but probably most likely a ground and pound TKO, because that is what Trabelsi does specialize in. Getting in top position, and then landing big time ground and pound. The belt Gouti will be fighting Archie Cogan. I do like Archie Cogan in this fight. I feel like every time Cogan fights, he does kind of seem to look more and more impressive. He had a very good performance against Justin Montalvo. That was prospect versus prospect. And in that matchup, he managed to outbox the boxer in Montalvo, which was very impressive. And then since then, has been kind of getting past some more experienced fighters. Peter Buist is a former one championship fighter who had success over there in that promotion. The belt Gouti is kind of interesting to me. He's a former UFC fighter, but that was a very long time ago. And then he fought in the regional scene a bit. And here he is in Bellator. It is going to be his home court advantage, I guess you could say. But I like Archie Cogan's skill set a lot. He's a very good boxer wrestler. And he's a very good boxer as well. I do like Cogan quite a bit in this matchup against Gouti. Kane Musa was having a lot of success against him. And I feel like him and Cogan have somewhat of a similar style. Musa was having a lot of success in the striking against Thibault Gouti, which probably isn't the best look when you do consider that Cogan's going to be a lot better. And the way that Gouti knocked out Musa was Musa kind of hurt him, or at least I think he might have thought that he hurt Gouti, and then he got way too over aggressive and left himself wide open to a counter. And that was a brutal knockout win for Gouti. But I don't see Cogan making the same mistakes on the feet. I think he should be able to box up the boat. Maybe even getting some takedowns as well. So yeah, give me Cogan. I'm going to go with Cogan to win by decision as well, because it is against another talented fighter. Yves Landu will be fighting Jonas Bilharinho. And I did look into this one, kind of expecting to predict Jonas Bilharinho to win, just because I do recognize quite a few of his opponents. I definitely recognize Jose Delano, and then I also recognized Kanan Kawahi, who he did beat on the Contender Series 2.5 years ago, but I kind of looked into it, and I was like, man, like, Jonas Bilharinho, he's weird. Like, he's a striker, I think. But he also shoots for takedowns. But prefers the fight to be on the feet, and he's not a very good striker, man. Like, Bilharinho's very sloppy. Like, he just really is, and he leaves himself wide open for opportunities, and I'm kind of thinking Yves Landu's decent and a much more technical fighter than him, and he can wrestle in his own right. The problem is that I do kind of have, which is giving me some reservation to pick Yves Landu, is just the fact that he has been out-wrestled quite a bit in his most recent matchups. This fight here against Asael Kobayashi was able to take him down pretty regularly, but Yves Landu was just beating the crap out of him on the feet, to be honest with you, in that matchup, which is why it was a split decision. Damage versus control, kind of that argument kind of happened in that fight. But Jonas Bilharinho, I do go through and I look at his fight. I don't think, that means 8 wins by knockout, man. How is he knocking these guys out? Like, yes, he caught Kaya Machado in the second round, but this guy is really sloppy, man. Like, and he's been in really good competition throughout his career, which is so confusing to me. It's kind of me. This whole part of the prediction video is just me kind of coping, I guess. I'm gonna pick Yves Landu. I don't know how I feel about it, just because I was so disappointed on the tape study on Jonas, I'll be honest. Yeah, I like Landu in the matchup. I think he's the much more technical fighter. Bilharinho probably is going to have to wrestle here, but I think that Landu's going to make him pay on the feet, and Landu can get his own offensive wrestling going as well. So give me Yves Landu to win a decision in this one here. I think he's going to be able to just kind of outstrike Bilharinho. I guess maybe Bilharinho could try and knock him out, but Landu's a tough guy. I don't think Landu's been KO'd too many times in his career, only once. So yeah, I'm going to go with Landu. And now I'm going to pick against Gregory Babini here. And I'll be honest with you, it's kind of because like this nonsense can't go on for much longer. Gregory Babini has gone on a 10-year unbeaten streak. He hasn't lost for 11 years, and in that period of time, he's turned away some very good prospects. You know, he turned away Mike Shipman, who I was talking about earlier, turned away Emiliano Sordi, who I think actually went on to become a PFL champion. Yeah, he's an interesting fighter, Gregory Babini, but now he's 40 years old, and I'm kind of thinking like it's gotta stop soon, right? Surely. Costello Vanstanese is kind of an interesting fighter that I have made some very bad reads on in the past. I will be honest. I did pick Kamil Onitschuk to defeat him, and that was a pretty bad prediction, to be honest with you. I was just really impressed by Kamil's striking and his power in his hands, and Costello Vanstanese made me look like a right idiot in that one. But then he went and lost to Douglas Lima, so who knows? I do think that Costello Vanstanese, though, on this one here, although I don't think he is actually that good at striking, should be able to survive the onslaught that is the 40-year-old Gregory Babin, and should be able to take him down and outgrapple him. It's kind of so hard to predict, because Gregory Babin is just like he's an interesting human. Like, I watch his fights, and he's just absolutely smoking these guys, man. Like, he just knocks everyone out in the first round. But I'm not that convinced that he can beat Costello Vanstanese at all. So I am going to predict Costello Vanstanese to go out there and shoot for takedowns, because he is a grappler, avoid the massive shots that Gregory Babin is definitely going to be throwing at him, and manage to find some sort of decision win as how I'm going to go. So I'm going to pick Vanstanese. It looks like most people actually agree with me on Tapology as well. I apologize that those last two breakdowns of the fights weren't too good. But let's move on now to the co-main event. Cedric Doumbe is going to be fighting Jaleel Willis. I think this is a good matchup for Doumbe to win. I do want to make it clear, I did actually predict against Doumbe when he fought Baisengwa Chamsadinov. And then that fight was kind of stopped weirdly. I think it was the very start of the third round. Doumbe complained about like a splinter in his... It was just weird. It was a really weird fight. And I think it's going to really blow up in PFL's face as well, because if you guys don't know, the UFC have actually started talking to Baisengwa Chamsadinov to sign him. So the PFL brought in Baisengwa Chamsadinov to fight Cedric Doumbe in a PFL main event in front of, what, like 20,000 people in that arena, and they only gave him a one-fight contract. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, Doumbe, he lost that fight. He was out-wrestled at times. Baisengwa Chamsadinov is just really good, to be honest with you. But before that, he knocked out Zebo in like 4 seconds, and before that, he was just having his own success on the regional scene. If you are unfamiliar with who Cedric Doumbe is, he is like the Alex Pereira of the lower weight classes, I guess, because Alex Pereira, to my knowledge, was the first ever two-weight glory kickboxing champion. And then Cedric Doumbe did it with some of the lower weight classes, and now he's transitioned over to MMA. I do think that Jaleel Willis, though, I think it's a bad matchup for Jaleel Willis. I kind of looked into him, kind of thinking maybe that he could beat him because there is going to be a massive size discrepancy in this one here. Jaleel Willis is 5'11" at 170 pounds compared to Doumbe at 5'8", but he's a big guy. Like Jaleel Willis is quite, he's got like a lot of bulk to him. I don't really know what the wording would be, but he's going to be a much bigger opponent than what Cedric Doumbe has fought in the past. But he's not a wrestler. Like, Jaleel Willis is a striker that doesn't really finish people. It's kind of weird because I was watching his matchups and he got caught by Sabah Hamasi, and then Sabah Hamasi took him down with ease, submitted him in the first round. I watched him fight Kyle Crutchmer the whole time. Jaleel Willis just kept it on the feet except for the one time when Crutchmer was gassed out and shot a bad takedown in the third round. I'm just kind of thinking Doumbe's the better striker. In a matchup I'm pretty confident is going to be on the feet. I just don't know if I can trust picking Jaleel Willis to wrestle Doumbe, but even then, I thought that Doumbe did have decent success in the defensive wrestling against Baisengwai Chomtadinov, who is absolutely no joke of a wrestler whatsoever. So yeah, I'm going to pick Doumbe. I'm going to pick Doumbe by KO. It is, once again, like, the PFL haven't been giving Doumbe the easy matchups. I know he knocked out Jordan Zebo in 4 seconds, but Jordan Zebo is a massive wrestler for 170 pounds as well. So, yeah, the whole time Doumbe's been in PFL, he's been having these striker versus wrestler fights. But I don't think Jaleel Willis is a wrestler. I think Doumbe should be able to knock him out on the feet. So give me Doumbe by KO in this fight, and it looks like everyone agrees with me as well. And now we move on to the main event. It is a rematch between Patchy Mix and Magomedov. And I am going to be predicting Patchy Mix to win. He won the first fight, and I've made it pretty clear and pretty public in my opinion on Patchy Mix. I genuinely believe that Patchy Mix is the best bantamweight in the world right now. And I know a lot of people that don't watch Bellator or don't watch the PFL and only watch the UFC are probably going to call me crazy for that, but I genuinely believe that Patchy Mix would beat Sean O'Malley if they were to fight each other, and I think that if Patchy Mix beats Magomedov for a second time, I think that would just further kind of emphasize that. But I do want to say this one thing though. Magomedov was having a lot of success in their first fight. He was able to take down Patchy Mix a couple of times, but then of course Patchy Mix did start to have success on the feet and eventually did lock up that guillotine choke. That was 1.5 years ago though, and I feel like Patchy Mix has just kind of been getting better. After that he knocked out Ralph Stoltz out cold. It was brutal. And then he submitted Sergio Pettis in the second round, and Sergio Pettis was coming off that win against Patricio Pitbull. So, yeah, like, I mean, we're kind of seeing a guy making improvements and taking on very difficult opponents and getting very good, impressive finish wins against them. Magomedov kind of is what you would expect him to be. He's a very good wrestler that does like to dominate in top control. But I think it's a bad matchup for him because Patchy Mix is a grappler for the most part, with very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And to add to that as well, he's absolutely massive for bantamweight. Like, if you actually do watch the original fight between Mix and Magomedov, which you can do on YouTube, you will see what I mean when I say there's a massive size difference between the two. Patchy Mix is absolutely gigantic for 135 pounds. And even if Magomedov does get the takedowns, you can see, and even in that first fight, Patchy Mix was able to get the reversals, was able to put Magomedov in bad positions on the ground, and eventually did lock up the guillotine choke. But more importantly as well, I feel like Mix is getting better as a striker, and we are starting to see that in the fight, and he's now going to be the better striker in the fight against Magomedov. So the only way that Magomedov can have success in this fight is to get the takedowns, but I feel like that could be still a risky endeavor because Mix is dangerous on the ground. He's the much bigger fighter. He should be able to just kind of pure muscle to muscle out-muscle Magomedov, even though Magomedov probably is going to be maybe the better wrestler. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Mix might have him covered kind of everywhere the more that I kind of talk about it, because Mix does have a wrestling background. But Magomedov is a very, very talented fighter. You don't go 20 wins, 3 losses without having some skill. But I do like Mix in the fight. I think Mix honestly has him covered everywhere. Maybe there's just a little bit of bias there from me because I do believe he is the best. But yeah, man, I'd love to see Mix in the UFC because PFL doesn't have a bantamweight division, and I'd kind of hate to see Mix fight at 145 pounds and then, you know, maybe take a loss because he's too small or something like that. I don't know. I like Mix. I think he should be able to beat Magomedov. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Looks like everyone thinks Mix of me. Mix beats everyone in Bellator, man. Like, we need to see him in a different promotion for sure. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video.